in the kitchen design work, we talk about the kitchen as the heart of the home, and you know, it's where everybody lives, it's where everyone spends their time, and it's also, of course, where we feed our families and ourselves. So our goal here with these shows is to talk about how to do that more easily, how to make it feel a little bit festive every day without stressing out about it. And for me, the key to that is just a kind of an arsenal of techniques that you can pull out in any situation, so you're not always like looking at a recipe and stressing about what am I going to make, and if something goes a little bit off, how do you fix that, and you know, try to get how you get back on course. So we talked about roasting a chicken 2 weeks ago. Last week we talked about using all of the rest of a chicken. Hi Jen Kendall, thank you for coming again. Using what's left of the chicken, the bones, the skin, the drippings, all of that, to make a stock, which is just a great thing to have in your pantry, and we're going to use that today. And then today we're going to talk about pan sauces. So how to take, you know, the rest of that chicken again in a different way and make a sauce, so when you're serving it that first day, pour on top and make it delicious. And we're going to do the same thing with a steak, a little bit different. So if I have another chicken, you're going to think all I ever have in my kitchen is cut up chicken, but if I made another roasted chicken, I just felt that the chicken conversation wasn't quite over. I'd be a little bit remiss not to talk about this last way to use the drippings. And then we're going to do a steak too. So let me show you what we have here. We have the chicken on the platter over there. We have a New York strip steak right here, which looks gorgeous. Some shallots and some herbs. These happen to be from my garden. Rosemary, thyme, and sage. So we're going to start with the chicken stock. I need to turn my burners on actually. Hang on 1 second, because this one of them doesn't light so well. So let me get a match in here. Do not blow the place up. Wait, hands here. There we go. Ah, do it again. All right, I'll put it back on me. Oh good, Karen's giving me the thumbs up. I don't know if I'm a little delayed for you, but I'll just gonna carry on. All right, so we have 2 pans here heating up. One is going to be for our chicken sauce, and the other is going to be for searing this steak and then making a sauce with that. So I guess there's a theme running through this that I want to pull together, which is using up all the little bits of everything. Like, this is another recipe where you're almost making something out of nothing, you know, stuff that you might have thrown away. So I have this same pan. This is of course another one from today, but it's the same pan again that we roasted chicken in. It has the drippings, the liquid, and the fat, and I'm going to strain this. I already scraped it because last week, I mean, that was pretty brutal with the metal spatula. So I scraped this already to try to loosen everything, and I'm going to pour this into my fat separator that we talked about last week also. So that's right here. I'm going to do that all the way over here though. Just get everything out of there. So anytime you're cooking pretty much anything, any kind of meat in particular, but also, you know, potatoes, the browned bits are the best part. So we don't want to throw that away. We don't want to just take this pan and dump it out and throw that away. So the main point here is the separation of the fat from the juices. It's mostly fat in this case. It will vary by chicken. And I would save that fat for something else later. We have only a tiny bit of juice, so we're going to end our chicken, like the drippings that aren't fat. We're going to save this fat for other purposes. It only strained out a little bit. I don't even mind that in my sauce, but we'll leave it out to make a smoother sauce. And we're going to use some white wine and some chicken stock to just sort of perk it up a little bit. So basically just into a hot pan. Oh, it's not even really going to separate because it's so little. Let's see. I'm going to pour the fat off. Just look. This comes out. I hope you can see this. What's supposed to happen is the non-fat pours out first, but it's so low that the fat's pouring out. So I'm going to pour that into a container. All right. do that. Fat out. Oh, it's a little bit of a mix. Okay, some fat coming out. Now the drippings are coming out, so I'm going to do that into the pan. Whoops, it's coming out over the top. Usually it's not so difficult. There we go. Let's switch views and see what I'm doing. It's a little bit of each right now. Can you see this? All right, so we just have, this is all the flavor from the bottom of the pan of the chicken. We're also today sort of practicing for Thanksgiving. It's a similar concept to what you do for a turkey gravy. So in a turkey gravy, usually you have your metal roasting pan. You can just put that, you separate the fat, put the whole metal pan directly on the burner. Do the same scraping, the same idea as all of this to make that gravy. So I think closer to Thanksgiving, we will do that together. But for today, we're doing chicken for your dinner. So you have your chicken carved, and this is what you're going to pour on top. So this is heating up. I'm going to turn that burner on pretty high. Yeah, it's already steaming. And you just want to reduce it a little bit, and then we're going to add some white wine. So this is just a Sauvignon Blanc. And I'm going to pour this in. Now the idea with adding wine, first of all, if this was hard liquor, don't add it over an open flame. I'm not even sure with wine, maybe you shouldn't, but it's fine. With hard liquor, pour it into something else first so you don't blow it up. That was about 1/3 of a cup probably. And I can smell the wine. So you want to cook that off so it doesn't have an acidic alcohol flavor. You just want the sweetness of the wine. So I'm bringing this up to a boil on high heat and whisking. So you just smell like that. It smells like wine still. So it'll start to sort of calm down a little bit and smell more like a combined sauce. So you can see that came up to boil pretty fast. And already there was just that little bit of drippings and 1/3 of a cup of wine, and it already looks like something here. And whisk away so that it combines. Hi Danielle, I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for coming. We're talking about pan sauces today. And I should also say, like I forget to say this every time, if anybody has any questions about what we're doing, about what we've done in the past with the chickens and the stock and how am I using this, please let me know, because I tend to jump around a little bit, so I feel like I have so much information to get out that I want to share it all. And let me know what questions you have. So right now we're simmering the pan drippings from the chicken with some white wine. And I mean, this is fairly simple. You don't even have to do much more than this. I might put some butter, and I might thicken this a little bit. If we wanted a greater quantity, add a little chicken stock, and then thicken it with some flour. So maybe we'll do both of those things. Hi Danielle, how are you? All right, so I'm going to keep going to make a little bit greater quantity of this. So wine, let's switch back to this view. Drippings, wine, a tiny bit of chicken stock, let it boil so we cook off the alcohol. I hope that scraping noise isn't horrible. And I should say that I'm letting this pan heat this whole time that we're doing this, so that it's going to be screeching hot when we put this New York strip steak on it in a few minutes. Hi Carrie, welcome. Let me know if you have any questions. I can't see it as well. Oh, the Burfields are having some wine. I'm glad to hear that. Enjoy yourselves and relax. I'm glad you're here. All right, so if you see, this already looks like a sauce. And I'm going to talk about how to thicken these kinds of sauces. You don't even really necessarily need to. You can just sort of pour this once it's reduced a little bit and the alcohol is cooked off out of the wine. You could just pour this over your chicken. You could add a little lemon, a little butter, like I said, which we're going to do. But if you want it to be a little bit of a thicker sauce, there are several ways to do this. So one is cornstarch, one is flour, and then there are some other thickeners like arrowroot and I tend to sometimes use a gluten-free baking flour, which usually has a little cornstarch in it too. So the key in any of those cases is to go slowly. So here I have 2 tablespoons of flour. I'm going to add water to this. So once you do that, you mix the two together, and that is called a slurry. And the reason we do that is if you dumped this flour into the hot liquid, it would clump up. Like, it's going to immediately start to cook and bind together, and you'll end up with tiny dumplings instead of a smooth sauce. So let's add a little water. You can add chicken stock too. Let me do that actually. A little chicken stock. So it's about, I'll put it on this camera so you can see. It's about half and half right now. This is cooking down nicely. I mean, you want to get that sweet spot where it's reduced, but you still have some sauce. Thank you, Carrie. That's a nice compliment. I've already said it a couple times, but I'll say it as people join. If you have questions, let me know. So here's our slurry. Again, same thing for Thanksgiving. There is Wonder flour for Thanksgiving. That's like a super fine flour that doesn't clump, but any normal flour or cornstarch, you want to do this. Combine it with some cold liquid first, and then, oh wow, look at this. You can see it's already getting a darker brown color. There's no alcohol smell left at all. It just doesn't taste like there's alcohol in there. But you want the flavor of the wine. And I'm adding a tiny bit of that, and I'm going to whisk it in before it becomes a dumpling, like I said. And you'll see an immediate difference, maybe too much, where it's thickening. You can see in the middle of the pan. That scraping noise, I'm sorry. I actually buy one of those rubber-ended spatulas. It's probably better for my non-stick pan. I'm going to turn this down, add a little more liquid. It's a little bit of a back and forth, and you just kind of look at that. Ooh, it looks good. Get it to the point where you want it. So now it looks sort of silky smooth. It's a little bit thickened. It's not reduced too much. I'm turning this down. And, oh, I meant to add a little sage. Let me do that. Keep it on a low simmer. I don't like it too thick. I don't like it, I mean, there's like that what's it called? Biscuits and gravy type of cuisine with a thick gravy. I don't like that on my chicken necessarily. So we wanted to still have some pouring ability to it. I'm going to stop that sound for a second and cut up some sage. So back to this camera. These are herbs from my garden, which is amazing to me because I really don't have much of a green thumb. But Karen asked, what kind of steak is this? It's a New York strip steak. And Jen asked, is it a cast iron pan? And no, it's not, but I'm going to talk, let me get back to that, and if I forget, remind me. I'm going to get back to that in a minute. I'm going to put a small amount of sage. You really don't want like a mouthful of sage necessarily, unless it's fried and it gets kind of crisp. You want it cooked up pretty well. So I've rolled them lengthwise, if you can see. Rolled them up lengthwise. You do this with basil too. And just make a very thin cut along the way. Yeah, we're going to do some chopping today too. The shallots and the herbs. Run over it a couple times. Ooh, that makes noise on the stovetop, but okay. And sprinkle that into our sauce. So this is taking me, I think, longer than it would take you. You know, just quickly these ingredients: the drippings, the wine, the stock, a little bit of sage, and the flour and water. I like a little bit of butter at the end, so a little butter. And we're going to do that with the red sauce too, the butter. Give that a second to melt. And we're going to pour it over our chicken. That was so simple. Catherine, thank you for being here again. We're in the middle of making a pan sauce for our chicken using the drippings, and then we're going to make the sauce for our strip steak as well, and learn how to sear the strip steak too. So hopefully that's all going to come out well on camera. I think this looks pretty good. Honestly, I'm going to taste it. And it tastes really good. I did not add any salt. If you remember the first chicken recipe the roasting of the chicken, we added, I think it was a tablespoon. I put a tablespoon and a half in that little bowl. I used about a tablespoon of salt on the outside. So a lot of that salt went into the drippings, and you do not, and a lot of it from the other chicken went into the stock. So you do not need any more salt on there at all. I will put a little bit of pepper, and that's done. So that was, 5 minutes. And pretty easy. Let's just pour it over our chicken. So here's another chicken. I've been eating a lot of chicken, I have to say. Oh, Catherine said she'll be my assistant. This is great news. Come and do it. It'll be really fun. We'll talk. I wanted to also say this. I've been doing this now three weeks in a row, the roasted chicken. So this is the 5th roasted chicken I've done, I think, for this purpose. And if you notice, it's come out just so much better. Like the skin came off these thighs the first time. I just feel like even though I would normally do this once a month or so, practice makes perfect. So even for me, just practicing it over and over and over, now you get the hang of really more where the joints are between the legs, and the whole thing becomes easier the more and more you do it. So that is true even when you've done it before, and it will be true for you too. So let's switch back here. Uh-oh, my sauce is still cooking. Like I said, go sparingly with the flour. I only use a small fraction of what I had in that bowl because you just don't want it to be like goopy in the end. So I'm going to pour this mostly over the breast. I think the ones in the bones, I don't know if you want so. I'll do it on everything. So. I will pour it everywhere. It looks delicious. And there we go. Oh, I missed the wings. So that's that. It's a couple extra minutes while the chicken rests. And for me, part of feeling like every day is a little special is just putting a small garnish. So let's just take 2 of these and put them like that. Done. So I should also say, I had this fresh sage, but it's really just as good with dried sage. Same is true for these other herbs we're going to use with the steak. The herbs are really kind of melding into a liquid base, so they plump themselves back up again. So if you don't have fresh sage, don't feel that you're out of luck. You can use dried sage. Dried thyme is also delicious with chicken. And the other thing I want to say is, if you don't have wine, we're gonna talk about what you can use in these different stocks. So if you have a chicken or a fish or something light like that, usually the pan sauce would be made with a wine, a white vermouth. You could use champagne, whatever you sort of have around. With the red stock, you would use red wine, or if you want it to be a little sweeter, a port or a red vermouth. So you can really just play with whatever you're trying to do, whatever you have around. So one more look at this. This chicken dish looks nice tonight. And I'm going to move this aside and talk about our steak. Jen Harrigan, thank you for being here again. Again, if anyone has questions, let me know. All right, now we have this really gorgeous New York strip steak. This is from Whole Foods. It's a pound, and it was $14. So I would say this would feed, when it's me and my kids, it feeds the 3 of us. We kind of slice it thinly and then mashed potatoes or something. It would feed 2 to 3. You really, a serving is technically a quarter of a pound, but this would feed 2 to 3 for $14. I'm going to switch these pans. This one has been eating the whole time that I've been talking. So let me come back to Jen Kendall's question. Hi Nikki, hi Dina. Thank you both for being here. Jen was asking earlier about this pan. So if you get a top view, this one is really hot. Hopefully not too hot when we put that steak in. And the reason for that is that you want a really good sear on the outside of this steak, or any meat like this that you're cooking, without overcooking the inside. So, you want this to be not freezing cold out of the refrigerator. The same way we let the chicken rest for an hour before we roasted it, this should rest for a little while before you put it in the pan. So the, you know, not room temperature, but like coolish steak is hitting a really hot pan, and you'll get a good sear without, you know, having to cook it all the way through. I tend to like my steak like medium rare, rare to medium rare. Hi Laura, thank you for being here. So that wasn't the question though. The question was, is this cast iron? This is a stainless steel pan. I find, you know, the options I have in my kitchen are a non-stick pan, a stainless steel pan, and I do have a cast iron pan. Is it right here? I know, it just disappeared without warning. It's right here actually. That's gonna be like, oh, sorry about that noise. I'm gonna bring it out to show you. So this is my cast iron pan. I'm not using it today just because I want it to be sort of what everybody has in their kitchen. Not everybody has a cast iron pan, but it is a great thing to have. So this one's pretty well seasoned, meaning that we could do a whole episode on cast iron care, but like you don't wash them, you sort of use salt and lemon to scrub them out and oil them so that it becomes over time a seasoned cast iron pan, and it's as non-stick as a non-stick pan. This, in my opinion, does make the best sear. So if you, I think it was with my brother earlier this year, we did sort of a test. If you put that steak in a really hot cast iron pan, you're gonna get a really caramelized exterior. The second best to me is the stainless steel pan. This is also really heavy. This is Lodge brand, I think, yeah. The stainless steel pan is a really good alternative, or maybe even has some benefits of its own, because in this case what we're trying to get is the browned bits on the bottom of the pan, like we did with the chicken, like we did, you know, with the stock. We're going to keep this theme of using that caramelized base of everything we cook to make the delicious flavor in the sauce. And we're going to do the same thing when we talk about braising. So the stainless steel pan is not as non-stick, so it tends to get more browning. I don't know if I'm going on too long about that, but you're welcome, Jem. I hope that answers it. It's like too much information. But so that's my choice for this case, making the sauce. You also don't really want to make an acidic sauce in a cast iron pan. So when we pour the wine in, that is technically an acidic sauce. I believe because it pulls the iron out of the pan. You don't want to do like a lot of tomato braising in cast iron. So that's where we are today. I don't know how. It's hot. That is hot. Whoops. I'm going to put a tiny bit of oil. Where did I'm going to get a different spatula. If I have one. Tiny bit of oil, not too much. Just, oh yeah, it's hot. I hope we don't have a smoke situation because you won't be able to hear me. Oh, it's smoking. If your oil starts smoking immediately, just pull the pan off like that. It's not an emergency. You know, you can regulate the temperature of the pan this way. They cool off pretty quickly. Catherine's asking, oh, that is a great question. Catherine's saying, who or what inspired your love of cooking? Oh, that's such an in-depth question. I grew up in a family that talks about food, loves food. We celebrate with food. I always say food is my love language. And, you know, my family it's just the way we communicate with each other is how are we going to celebrate a birthday or a holiday. Let me get this in here and I'll come back to it before I forget. So we want to season this steak with salt. That's a nice question, Catherine. I can smell that olive oil heating up there. Good seasoning on both sides. I'll come back with pepper later. And are you ready? This is going in. Ta-da! It's not overly hot. Okay, we're good. We're good. So that's the foundation of why I love to do this. And I think just in my 20s, you know, I watched a lot of Food Network when it was very like instructional, and I was really into the New York restaurant scene and just found a love of food and a love of looking at different ingredients and so many different unique things that you can discover about it that I know that I've just reached the tip of the iceberg at this point. So that's the short version of a long story. And I love to teach about it. I love to share this with other people. So thank you, Catherine. So we've got this steak searing over here. You might notice from last time with the chicken, I don't tend to use a thermometer for things like day to day. I would definitely use it for Christmas roast, anything that's in the oven for a long time. But I sort of go by feel more. So if we want this to be medium rare, they say you can use your hand. Like a loose hand is rare, or this point right here. So if you poke right here, this is how the steak should feel if it's rare. And then as you make more of a fist, it's like medium rare, medium, well done. I don't like my meat well done. But you know, you're going for rare to medium rare. And some of the tricks here are the really hot pan, like we talked about. Salt on the outside always helps make it crust, the same way it did with the chicken. And don't mess with it. Try to leave it alone. Leave it on that first side as long as possible. And you might think it's going too long, but it's generally going to be underbrowned, and it would be really hard to reach a burnt point. Oh my God, Mia, I'm so glad you're here. I thought you were busy. I'm glad you came back. Mia asked the question earlier about thickening the chicken sauce, and she says, I remember watching your dad make a pepper rod with such love and joy, which is just like cooked down peppers that go on top of, I guess you could put on top of eggs, and that is true. My dad also has a love of cooking and is much more exacting than I am. He perfects his recipes over years and years and years and makes notes and writes it down, and he has definitely inspired me as well. So, where are we here? We have our steak searing in our hot pan. I am going to just peek at it, but I know I said leave it alone. It is not sticking at all, but there are some brown bits there that I'm going to show you. If you're doing, obviously, you can do more than one at a time. I'm just doing this one to show. But yeah, we already have brown here. That's what we're looking for. And just going to leave it on that side. And while it's there, I'm going to cut up some shallots to put in our sauce. So this one's a little tiny, but they're nice size. So with onions, I don't cut off the root end. With shallots, I have started because if you cut off the root end and hold your knife down, it peels that side off, and you can see where the two bulbs are to separate them more easily. That's something I've just started doing. And we'll just peel that outer layer off. That was probably the easiest it's ever been for me. I'm just showing off right now. Hi Regina, thank you for being here again. Let me know if you have questions. We are currently searing a New York strip steak and getting ready to make a sauce for it. So I'll do 2 shallots. So you cut off the stem end, cut off the root end. This one feels like it has only one bulb. Yeah. And then sometimes I make a little very shallow slice to make it easier to get that off. Oh, there's 2. There are 2 in there. Makes it easier to get this peel off. I love shallots in sauces. They just add like a nice sweetness. All of this I would save generally. And I know we've talked about that a little bit, but I save onion trimmings, carrot trimmings, celery, shallot, stuff like this, because it can all, I put it all in a bag and freeze it, and it can all go into your stock, like last week when you're making the chicken stock, and you get more goodness out of it and use all those little bits. So I'm just going to put it to the side right now. Let's see. Right over here. Okay, our steak is cooking away. It might be time to flip. It's smoking a little bit. Where are my tongs? Okay. Let's look at this. Oh yeah, that is what we want. I think at home we have a tendency to under-sear. You know, you don't want to burn it, so you kind of get carried away. We want a dark, dark, dark caramelization like that, because it just tastes so good. You have a crustiness to the outside. I'm going to also sear this side once we do this. That one doesn't really need it, but this fat side, you know, looks like it could use a little bit of browning. All right, so while we wait for that, let's chop our shallots. Shallots make me cry so much more than onions. I don't know if that's true for everyone. Hi, Lynn, welcome. And thank you, Regina. Regina says it looks great. It smells great, I have to tell you. You put some salt on that steak and just stuck it in a really hot pan. Wash your fingers. We're going to talk next week. I postponed the knife skills video because I just wanted to finish up on the chicken and the sauce. But next week we're going to talk about knife skills and cutting the onion, the carrots and celery like I was talking about, which is sort of the foundation for the next thing we'll do, which is braising. And then also how to make it easier to, you know, have onions chopped and ready for your week. I love shallots. We can do some more shallots like this. All right, so we have four, if you count each half as one, 4 little shallots here. Thinly slicing. Keep your fingers tucked. Keep your thumb tucked. That's always the one to remember. I really have like a little fear of cutting myself on camera. And you're sort of using your thumb to push the shallot under the knife. Okay. I need cards. Oh, it's because I'm wearing my glasses probably. I need the glasses to see the comments. So it protected my eyes. That did not make me cry so much. All right, we've got our steak. It's smoking. The oils are smoking really more than the steak itself. I used olive oil. I would recommend maybe a vegetable oil instead because olive oil has a lower smoking point than vegetable oil. Sometimes you combine olive oil, the two, so that it raises the smoking point. It has a nice flavor. That's just what I keep here, so I used it. But, you know, maybe like an avocado oil or canola oil would not smoke so much. All right, let's look. Let me show you what the browning looks like. Oh yeah, it's sizzling. I mean, it's going to be done no matter what. That has a nice soft give to it still. I'm going to cook this edge. You just don't want like uncooked fat. I don't like the way that, I'll show you what to do in a second. The way the olive oil is. I'll hold it with my tongs. And cook this edge. Oh yeah. This pan is super hot. So I think I might have said already, the thing about a non-stick pan, first of all, you don't want to get it quite so hot. I think the materials that make it non-stick don't like to be heated up to this degree. And then the other issue is you want it to stick a little bit so you have this fond, the base that we're going to make our sauce out of. Don't want it to burn, so we're going to finish this up quickly. All right. Oh. All right. Flipping it one more time. If you look, the side that I just held down now has this caramelization instead of just plain fat. Another second like that. And I'm going to put fresh oil in there for the shallots. I just got a little bit oxidized. You can see the oil turned brown. It's different from, I don't know how to explain it, but it's a little bit different from the browning of the meat. It just doesn't look that right. So fresh oil for the shallots. The browning from the meat is what we want. And we're going to take this off. Oops, there's a little snap. And let this rest. So oil, shallots in immediately. So if you're not using shallots and you're just going straight for like the sauce the way we did with the chicken, then immediately your wine goes in. In this case, this is first. If you're doing shallots or onions, let me say it again more clearly. Shallots or onions go in before you would deglaze the pan with wine because you don't want onions sort of simmering in wine before they're cooked. If you're skipping the onions and just making a straight, you know, clear sauce, then you deglaze immediately with wine. And I should say that deglazing is the process of pouring the liquid in here and then scraping up all this brown bits off the bottom to get the flavor into your sauce. Hi, Kelly. Kelly's here again. Kelly's been texting me her questions and her pictures of her delicious food, including a roasted chicken. which is awesome. I would love any of you, if you want to send me pictures of food that you're making, if you're inspired, I would love to see that. All right, our shallots are cooking really quickly. That is the super hot pan, which I'm turning down now. I'm going to turn that down. All right, shallots. I have to open the wine before I burn it. All right. I'm going to pour a little bit of chicken stock in there early because I forgot to open. Oops, you can't see. If I didn't open this yet, I don't want this to burn. So let's just keep the pan wet for a second. Woo! There we go. Let's just open this. All right, and it's the same process. So if you notice, it's the same process. You have drippings. You have, in this case, a little bit more fat and the shallots for flavor. But then the next step is always a wine or an acid of some sort to deglaze the pan and like bring all those drippings together. And then a little more stock. And some herbs. That's how we do it. So that went too far. Come on. There we go. That's the same technique every time. So once you practice that, you know, it doesn't matter what steak it is. It doesn't matter what. If you're doing chicken breast, you can do the same thing. Scrape up the browning from the chicken breast. Oh my God, Lynn said she's made 2 roasted chickens and broth. I'm so excited. That makes me really happy. How was it? I'd love to hear how they were. And a picture. Do you have a picture? That's exciting. I hope they were terrific. All right, we're going back here. We have, turning that back up. Look how good it looks already. They're like cooked down and soft, and now it's time to scrape those. So I'm pouring, let's see, like half a cup, 3/4 of a cup of red wine. That's a nice wine. And we want to scrape. So this is called deglazing. Scrape, scrape, scrape. I'm turning this way back up because same as the last one, we don't want the alcohol flavor in the sauce. We just want the sweetness and the flavor of the wine. That all came off of our pan really easily, so all those drippings are now, or not drippings, seared bits are now in our sauce. Yeah, never throw that away. Lynn says, no picture, but Mark was happy and they were yummy. I'm so glad. That is great news. Okay, the whisk. And while I have this camera on, I'm going to chop up some herbs for this one. So this is resting. This little bit fell off of here. Oops. This fell off of, how does it go? Oh no, I lost it. There. This is a shallot that came out. That was sage for the chicken. So this is thyme from my garden that you just, go over here. I take the sprig of thyme, pull all the leaves off in one swoop, and I pull backwards against the way they grow. In one swoop. I have too much stuff going on here. I'll do 2 sprigs of thyme. And again, in a sauce like this, if it's dry thyme from a jar, it is just perfectly good. It's going to be just as good. Kelly is asking, so Kelly just joined us, and she's asking what kind of steak. It's a New York strip steak. It's a 1 pound strip steak, so I would say that's for 2 to 3 people, and it was $15. So I think that's a pretty reasonable, nice dinner, right? With maybe some mashed potatoes. This is pretty rare. I like it rare. It's not so brown that you couldn't keep going, and if you feel, I'm throwing a lot of information at you. Stop me if it's too much. If you feel that you want it more well done, and see how now it's already so brown, you can do another flip. So this side gets a chance to cool facing upward, and then give it a little more flip, and it won't burn. It will actually be that much better for being browned, if that makes sense. So I do like pretty rare steak. So all right, we have also some rosemary from my garden. We're gonna pull that the same way, right, whoop, backwards off the stem, and chop it pretty well, because rosemary is another one. You don't want a big mouthful of it. If it's dried rosemary from the jar, I crumble it like scritch it in between my fingers so it doesn't have dry chunks in the sauce. Like that. Run your knife over it a couple times. It's loud because it's on my stove top. lot. So I'm going to pour some chicken stock. You could use beef stock if you had it, and we're going to make beef stock sometime together. But since we have chicken stock, I'm pouring that in, probably half a cup of that too. And let this all come together and throw our herbs in there so they become part of the sauce. All right, our steak should rest for about 10 minutes, so we're right on track for that. And just whisk. I don't know if you got a good look at it actually. That wine, it wasn't dry, the bottom of the pan wasn't dry, but it was getting there. It was sort of, you know, almost syrupy. It was syrupy. So you know that the alcohol is all gone from it. All right, let this reduce. I don't tend to thicken a red pan sauce with any sort of flour or cornstarch or anything. You know, it can sort of get a little gloopy, and you just want it to be a little more clear. So what we're going to do is some butter again, but a little bit more than the other one. So it's called mounting the sauce with butter. Regina's asking, oh, I should call and ask for sponsorship. I love this knife so much. This is a knife, it's from that website, Food 52. And I just absolutely adore it. Regina's asking what kind of knife I have, and I just totally stopped what I was talking about because I love it. It has this gray handle and brass rivets. It's just a really nice weight and full tang, which I always recommend, meaning the blade is going all the way through the handle. We could do a whole series on knives sometime too, but it's a chef's knife, and I like it because it has a nice rocking motion on the board as well. So anyway, the butter in the sauce, in a sauce like this, it's called mounting the sauce. So you're adding the butter almost as a thickener, and you want to add small amounts at a time and whisk it in as you go. So I'm going to put it on the camera of the pan. That's thickening up pretty well on its own. That's about a tablespoon of butter. So this is the basis of a lot of French sauces. Like if you're making a hollandaise, you're mounting it with butter, but a lot more butter than we're going to do now. And the sauce sort of just absorbs it in and it emulsifies. Maybe that's already gone. Let's do a little more. So maybe it's not so dietetic, but but it's delicious. That's like 2 tablespoons, and I don't know how difficult or easy it is to see that it has like a shinier quality to it. And the reason you want to whisk is so that you don't get kind of pools of the fat from the butter in your sauce. You want it to emulsify. So butter will emulsify better than like if you just put the chicken back in, or if you put an oil back in. It won't emulsify in the same way. It will always taste separate because the butter has the milk solids, like what cheese is made of, like the milk solids, instead of just fat. It has other things going on. That's why we use butter. And it's also quite delicious. So that's a 3rd tablespoon, and I think that will be enough for this purpose. I'm turning this back down at this point because it's reduced as far, or maybe even a little further than we want to go. A splash of chicken stock. I did not intend for this video to be so much information, but I hope it was clear. So this has like a velvety quality to it now that I don't know. Let me hold it up. Can you see it? Under the light. Yeah, there we go. It thickened up a little bit. It's kind of soft looking, and that's, let me just give it a taste too. I didn't put salt in there. Let's see how it tastes. It doesn't need it. Okay, a little pepper. It doesn't need it because it has the salt from the steak. There was quite a bit of salt on the steak too. I am going to put a spoonful of sugar, a tiny bit, like a teaspoon of sugar. I find sometimes the red wine sauces can be, like they never lose their acidity, and you want it to be sweeter. So maybe you would use a little bit of port. No, like half a teaspoon of sugar. You know, it kind of brings it all together at the last second. Don't be afraid to use a tiny bit of sugar in a savory dish. You can't even see the herbs. They're really blended in there. All right. Tracy Patton, welcome to the show. I'm so happy to see your name there. We're doing a sauce for a New York strip steak right now, and we're about to plate it. If anyone has any questions, let me know, please. And let's see here. All right, we have our platter. Let me move this cast iron pan. The only thing about this, we were talking about it before, but they weigh a ton. I store it in this oven with some other cast iron things. I don't hang it on the wall. I think it would pull the racks off the wall. Let's see. All right, let's clear up our board. And we'll slice this up. I think, let's see, is it rare? It's pretty rare. Oh my gosh, I'm drying out my sauce. If this happens and now it's like bubbling, like it's caramelized, just add a little more stock. You can always adjust with these things once you've done it a couple times. It's never the end of the world. Okay. But yeah, but don't walk away and don't get distracted because that will happen. Okay, New York strip steak. We have this fat end here. It had some nice marbling, which I'm gonna eat that. That's really good. Okay. So, go back to this camera. They always say you want to slice against the grain so that the resulting slice has grain going in it this way, not crosswise, so that it's more tender. You're not trying to bite in with the grain. Oh no, can you all see me right now? Because someone's saying that the video stopped. I'm not sure. I'm going to keep going. So we're going to slice on a bias, meaning on a slight angle like this. Oh yeah. That's about medium rare, I'd say. It's not overly red inside. And it looks really nice. This fat got brown on the outside. I have no idea if you're all watching, but I hope so. Otherwise, there'll be a replay. And we'll just slice some, maybe a little thicker than that one. So nice. Slices like this. Oh, that looks, for me, that's perfectly cooked. I don't know, let me know how you like your steak cooked. The middle's pretty rare. In my family, we would all be fighting over that rare part. Well, we don't fight, but go for asking for that part. You know what I mean. And my sauce is still cooking. I'm turning that off. Last piece. And I just did an absolute cardinal sin, which was I wiped up some of those juices. And I'm going to show you what I should be doing with the juices, which is putting them back into the sauce before you serve up that sauce. So this is actually called marrying the flavors of the sauce and the meat. So that is what I should have done. Put this over here. And I'm just going to whisk up our sauce one more time and spoon it on top of the meat. I think you're all gone. I'm very sad. So I will text you all individually so that you can watch the end later. Something happened to my video, but I hope that you will watch this and make it and send me pictures. So we have our sauce with the butter, herbs, shallots, red wine, and some chicken stock, and the drippings from underneath this seared New York strip steak. I'm going to sort of strain it out like that so we get the shallots all on top, and then pour the sauce around underneath. Let's see, I didn't plan how I was going to plate, but that's my idea right now. Ooh, actually that's working pretty nicely. Can you see it? Yes, very nice. Okay, so we have our shallots on top, sauce on the bottom. Always clean the edges of your dish for a fancy presentation. There's the shallot skin in there. And a little garnish on top. So this really did not take us very long. I think we've been going for, I really am sad you're all gone, I know you are, but I'm like I said, I will text you, and we will continue this, and I'm glad we have a recording. But anyway, like I was saying, this is our finished dish. We've done 2 dishes in this 1 hour that we've been recording, and you know, this is actually a fairly easy weeknight thing. We seared a steak, and we made the pan sauce with a little shallot and some herbs, and you know, you could do 2 at once quite easily in that same pan, and it's an easy way to feed your family and get the most flavor out of everything you're making. So that said, next week we're going to talk about mirepoix, which is the celery, onions, and carrots that are the base of most braised dishes and stews and chilies and bean dishes and things like that. Some knife skills, and we'll start talking about braising, which also incorporates browning meat and using the base and the liquid and the brown bits and everything we started talking about today. So I am grateful for all of you who are here. I'm grateful for your questions. I'm grateful for your inspiration and the fact that you're all cooking and letting me know about it. You can find me on cocohoughh.com, COCOHOUGH. Soon these will be on YouTube as well, and Facebook Coco Huff for kitchen design and for cooking, and we're going to be doing a lot of other stuff too. So I'm looking forward to this again next week, and I hope you all have a terrific week. Thank you. Bye-bye.